I'm going to say this right now, boys and girls, and I'm going to wait for him to get on. But Thomas Boyle, you are to leave this man alone tonight. Welcome, boys and girls, to a very fun episode here on Isles Talk tonight. You've got two hosts, but only one is working. It's a little bit of a venting session, a little bit of getting back to you know basics in a way and catching up and everything. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Kreischer. I'm your only host tonight on Isles Talk. Joining me uh, in a very long overdue is my guest. He's not working, he's not producing, he's not programming, nothing tonight. The man is just here to chat hockey with us on the Isles. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sean Cuthbert. Sean, how are you?
Paul, I am well. Thanks a lot for having me. It's nice to be on the other side of the the coin, so to speak, tonight, as you mentioned. Nice to just kind of relax and hang out and talk some miles. But thanks a lot for having me.
I got to ask, have you ever tried copywriting that "How are you"?
Oh, the how are you?
Oh, how are you? Yes.
How are you? No, but maybe that's something I could look into
You've
for
been doing
sure.
it for years, but all right. So listen, before we jump into the Isles, you know, you're known on, Hockey Night in New York, but a little personal stuff real quick. Do
Sure,
you still play hockey?
I do. Actually, I do. Even though I'm an old man, I still play in an ice league and a roller league. Actually,
Really? What
yeah,
position are you playing?
I play defense.
Are you really?
That's right.
I
That's
had you
right.
for a winger. I don't know why.
I was, many moons ago. When I played high school
Ah,
hockey, I played up on the wing, but then, I transitioned to D in college, and I've been there ever since.
beautiful. All right. Well,
Yeah.
listen, we want to know what kind of an NHL fan you are. And it obviously you're an Islanders fan, but from a
Sure.
hockey perspective, because
Okay.
we'll try to play nice here. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
You've got three options. Number
Alright.
one, fan number one. My team has blown 15 points and should be in first place. Fan number two, my team has the second fewest regulation losses in the conference. Or are you fan number three? My team's real record is 17-20, so they should fire the coaches, GM, and start a rebuild this offseason.
I
So what kind of a fan are you,
I
Sean?
would say I'm probably closest to fan number 2.
Okay.
I'm not ready to fire anybody. I don't know how excited I am about having so few regulation losses. I guess that's a nice thing to have.
Right.
But, yeah, somewhere around number 2, where I'm definitely on the more, bright side sort of thing where I usually am, to be honest with you. Usually
Good.
more optimistic. Yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
All right. Well, listen, let's stick with the optimism for just a little bit. 17,
Sure.
10, and 10. Um, you and I are old enough to know that we have never seen a season like this.
Nope, not me.
Yet,
Not me.
yet what have you gotten out of the season so far?
Just I keep using words like strange, weird, bizarre, and it just, we get further and further into the season and not much has changed. I mean, they're still kind of playing winning and losing games the same way they have since it started, right? They're scoring goals in bunches, which is nice to see, but they're not keeping them out of the net. It seems almost guaranteed that if and when the Isles get a lead, whether it's a goal, two goals, that eventually the other team is going to catch up, and then you're crossing your fingers to see if they're going to get that second point, right? And in a lot of situations, they haven't, and it's just earlier on, I thought that things might have balanced itself out a little bit more. Where okay, early season, still figuring things out.
Right.
And as the season progresses, you kind of settle in and then maybe you start closing games out more. You hold on to more of those leads. or maybe just lose games more traditionally, right? But it always seems like it's either a forced overtime and shootout, and they drop it then, right? Instead of like losing your odd 3-1 game, we'd almost have less stress if that happened a little more
Yeah,
often. But I mean, they're putting their fans through the ringer almost every night just with these blown leads. I mean, I don't know if I'm not a betting man, but if you can bet on that sort of stat, where is the other team going to come back, bet on it almost every night because it's happening at such a common clip. It's just wild. So,
a,
but at the end of the
a lot.
day,
Yeah,
they're still what, third place in the Metro now. They have sole possession of third, where they 2 points behind Carolina with a game in hand. So they're not in a bad spot as far as that goes. They have a lot of teams nipped at their heels. It's a very tight division, so they got to keep putting points on the board. Which if if there's one thing you can't take away from them, they're picking up points nearly every night.
that's right. And we're still playing with 3 23-year-old defensemen.
Right? True.
And you've got, and Gary and I were talking about this last week. Um, it took the Islanders almost 35 games to finally discover their third line.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
you know, dealing with a lot of injuries, and now we have Varlamov injured. We don't know for how long just yet. We'll go along with the day by day, day to day. Um, but how nervous are you with if Varlamov is out for an extended period of time, and you're running Sorokin here?
I think it's if he's out for a long time, I think it becomes a concern later on in the season because they'll probably keep running Sorokin out there as much as they can. Maybe they rest him on your traditional back to back.
Right?
And if it's an extended period of time, then it probably catches up with him later because look, he's still a pretty young dude. He can probably handle the load for, whatever the next month, 2 months, 3 months. I mean, whatever you want to say. But I imagine in the early going it'll be fine. But it's when you get deeper into the season, into March and April, and he's played all of these games, and the games get
He's already
tougher
been through the grind. Yeah.
is worth, feels like they're worth 10 points, right? And that's when it probably starts to take a toll. So yeah, you cross your fingers that A, Varlamov gets healthy quicker or quick. And if not, then Lou's got to work the phones and try to bring in at least some kind of serviceable backup so that you're not worried about giving up 5-6 goals every night with putting in some unknown.
Right. Well, for Islander fans who don't know, Appleby is a serviceable goaltender at the NHL level for 3 to 5 games, and the Islanders are in a stretch right now where me personally, I've seen enough out of him where you could play him against Arizona. If he keeps the Islanders in the game, that's all you're asking him to do. But then you can have Sorokin go against Vegas. You've got Vancouver. You've got Toronto. I think they've got Nashville, but they're all every other game, which is what Sorokin loves to do anyway. And then you only have that one back to back in January, Minnesota and Winnipeg.
I don't
If
think
Varlamov is still out, yeah, go ahead.
if Varlamov's hurt, I don't think there's any question that Sorokin plays against Arizona and Vegas. I don't think there's any debate there.
If
I'd be
he's
I'd
out
be
long term,
very
yeah,
surprised if they put Appleby or anybody else in
yeah,
Wednesday. Yeah. Or
no,
Thursday.
agree. But again, would I be nervous with Appleby against Arizona specifically? No, I think he could
Hmm.
handle that one game. So,
Well, you got more
but
faith in
again,
me.
yeah, yeah, no, Appleby would definitely keep him in the game for sure. But again,
Okay.
long term, like you said, if Varlamov is out much longer, I agree. Lou's got to work the phones on that because Appleby will get torched.
I have a feeling he's working the phones already, whether
Yeah,
Varlamov's out for 2 games or 12. I think
yeah,
that's just something they need is they need that serviceable third stringer. Why you talk about Appleby, but I'd feel a little more comfortable with somebody else in there. So hopefully that's something Lou can address because everything seems all well and good when they're both healthy, but all of a sudden one of them go down, you're like, oh man, this could become a problem.
yep. All right, so let's stick with the positives here again. Give me your thoughts on Noah Dobson.
This is his coming out party, right? I mean, yes, he's put up essentially 50 points in the last 2 seasons, but this is him really establishing himself as a elite defenseman. He has been unbelievable. I think he's your guy that goes to the All-Star game now that they're starting to, make those
That was
announcements
my
soon.
one question later on. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's just been outstanding. You can't ask for anything more. And, something that Stefan and I kind of took notice of this season is, we watched the preseason games and it looked like he was still up to his old bad habits defensively. And we were still a little concerned that it was going to be, feast on the point scoring end, but still famine on the defensive end, where he ends up being a little irresponsible out there. But it's almost like a switch flipped. And as soon as the season started, he's been playing nearly as good defensively as he has offensively, and he's been a revelation. The Islanders haven't had a defenseman like this in eons. And you look up and down the lineup, and it is kind of wild now, where you have that top line center that you need. You have a top line winger. You have a top line defenseman now. And of course, you have one of the best goaltenders in the game. You can argue whether Sorokin's having a good season or not based on his numbers, but they have a lot of the ingredients there for a team that if they get into the postseason, especially with a guy like Dobson anchoring your team, where you can definitely do some damage.
Yeah. And again, let's stick with the younger kids here for a moment.
Sure.
Simon Holmstrom, again, and I've said this on the show many times, even in the beginning of the season, I would have loved for him to go down to Bridgeport just to shoot the puck because
Right.
that's all he needed to do.
Right.
Shoot the puck, get any kind of confidence, and when he was ready, bring him up. There was nothing else wrong with his game. Give me your thoughts on what you've
No,
seen
the
out of
the
him this
the
year.
key word there is confidence, and that goes for
Yeah,
any young guy. And
yep,
Simon Holmstrom being one of them. He showed that he had some tools. He definitely showed that he had the defensive prowess, playing 50 games last season, whatever it was. And you were just kind of waiting for the offense to come, right? And that was a big topic. He was interviewed about it a couple of times over the course of time, and he finally found it, at least to a degree, right? Especially when down a man, the shorthanded king, right? It's been
mhm,
unbelievable watching this guy score all these goals shorthanded, and the chemistry that he's developed with Pajot, and he had a beautiful goal last night against Colorado. And yeah, there's still instances though where you kind of want him to shoot, and he hesitates, and he's still
yep,
passing it off or dishing it, whatever the case.
yep,
So he still needs to, I think, find a little more confidence in his shot. But once he gets it, I think he's going to be a real pleasant surprise, and he has been so far this year.
yep. So, all right, yeah, we're getting a lot of comments here on the defense. Pelican Pullet coming back. It almost seems like a system thing with me, not the way we're giving up so many goals. We talked about this briefly before the show.
Hmm.
Yes, it is part of the system, but man, have we seen some dumb plays and penalties this season that honestly has cost the Islanders quite a few points
Sure.
in the standing. So, what is it? Is it the system? Is it the players? Is it a little bit of both? What do you think?
Well, when it comes to mental errors, I mean, it's literally in the mind of whichever player is making that mistake, right? I don't think you can blame that on a system when a guy needlessly hooks somebody or gets a stick in somebody's face. I mean, Barzal has been famous for that for years now. I feel like he just has his stick just finds his way into guys' faces every now and then. But for whatever reason, look, it's easy for us to look at it from an outsider's point of view. The game is fast, and sometimes your instincts just kick in, and you end up tugging on a guy with your stick when maybe a little longer than you should have. But at the end of the day, it's happening too much. And, we've seen how many power plays that the Islanders have had that have literally been canceled by how many of their own penalties that they've taken. Yeah, like you said, that's probably cost them at least a point or two, when you look at some of these games. So I think a lot of it is kind of mental discipline for some of these guys. And you can say, oh, well, then it's on the players. And then I'm sure some of you might say, well, it's on Lane Lambert and the coaching staff to reel these guys in and get them focused. And I think I can appreciate that as well. So it's probably a mixed bag. I mean, I'm a little more concerned with just the system overall as opposed to the mental errors and the penalties because they still haven't found a way to keep pucks out of their net. And that's whether they're hanging on to a lead or even some of these games, even though they're rare, where they're giving up the earlier lead. But I mean, let's face it, they're giving up 3 to 5 goals almost every game. And that's just not going to be sustainable. And that's why you're seeing Sorokin's numbers so high because the truth is, he's doing everything he can back there, but the defense in front of him or the defensive system in front of him is kind of just failing him on nearly a nightly basis. And that's why they're giving up 3 to 5 goals almost every night. It's just they gotta figure that out. That's the biggest concern for me.
Yeah, and again, for everyone who was not here last week, I brought out a stat, and I'm going to include Pittsburgh's game uh, as well. So this is just going to go to Sean's point. When the Islanders allow 3 goals or less against their opponent, the Islanders are now 14-2-2 this season.
Yeah, it's a
Three
great
eight
number.
and eight, 3-8-8 when they give up more than three to the opponent.
There you go.
14-2-2. Now I got to ask. Lane Lambert has been with Barry Trotz for
Right.
so long.
Yeah.
how is this system giving up 3 to 5 goals? It is it, for me, I would love to see more. I'm not gonna lie. Last night's game, Colorado, they were doing great for us beyond the first 10 minutes of that period. They were doing the dump and chase, they were
Mhm.
doing the forechecking, and then they just stopped. And then that's when the turnovers in their own end started going in. So
Well, that's a big part of it is they're getting hemmed in their own end, and I mean, if I had a dollar for every failed clearing attempt I've seen this team try to make, I'd probably be a fairly wealthy man.
yes, you would.
They they seem to have a hard time getting pucks out, and it's hard to say, is that a systems thing? Is that a personnel thing? I mean, sometimes it's luck. Like I think it happened last night
It
where
was a lot of luck in Colorado.
they were trying to clear the puck last night. It went off the ref's knee and it kicked back out into the middle of the zone. And Colorado had a really good opportunity. I mean, that stuff's going to happen every now and then. But
Yeah,
overall, they've definitely struggled getting the puck out. And that's, I think the concerning thing to me is that this has been an issue before and after these injuries to the defense. I think the team has done a very admirable job still winning games and still getting points without Pellick, Pullock, and Mayfield. I mean, you go into this season prior and you find out that those guys are going to be out at the same time for a significant amount of time, and you'd be like, oh man, the season's over, right? So the fact
sell
that
this team.
they've done more than tread water with those guys being out. And now the question is,
Yeah.
how much are they going to improve as they continue to come back? Obviously, losing Bortuzzo is a hit, but it almost seems like the time. Look, you never want to see a bad injury like that, but the timing almost couldn't be better in the sense that it seems like Pellick's going to be coming back soon anyway. So at least they may not be without a veteran stalwart defenseman back there for too long, even if Pellick doesn't step in tomorrow. But I'm really curious to see just how much of a difference is going to be made once Pellick and Pullock come in. You already have Mayfield back, and if that really has been part of the issues as to why they haven't been able to keep pucks out. But like I said, the one thing in the back of my mind is this was still kind of an issue prior. So, I wish I had the answer for you, Paul. I really do, but I'm
No.
really not sure why this team has struggled so much to clear pucks out of the zone. And I almost think it's just kind of easy to scapegoat a guy like Lane and say, oh well, it's obviously Lane's fault because he's the coach. I mean, it might very well just be the guys that are on the ice.
Yeah. See, I'm gonna oop, not the, I'm gonna respectfully disagree with Mark on the moment. I don't think it's the system. You know what? I
Well,
there's a lot of players, some of it is system, sure, but there's just a lot of hockey 101 mistakes being made by the players throughout this season that I just can't say, "Oh, it's the system that's failing us here."
Well, a reason why it could be is because you look at their offensive output, right? They're putting up more goals. Now, is this kind of a cause and effect thing where they've opened their system up so that they can attack more? They're using a little bit more speed. They got a puck carrier now, like Engvall now on the second line. They have two now with Barzell on the first line, and they're obviously they're getting more quicker zone entries. They're getting guys and carry the puck in the net, and it almost seems like it's just opening them up, right? And it's allowing them to score more goals. Now, is a adverse effect of that because they've opened themselves up a little bit more? Is that what's causing them to end up back in their own zone, giving up more goals? Look, I can't sit here and tell you that's exactly why, but I feel like it could be a situation where because they've opened up their offense more and they're not playing as a tight conservative game
I
as they did with Barry Trotz, where you play
I
the dump and chase and you sit back and you let the team come back at you. The Islanders are attacking more, and it's probably allowing them for more chances against and ultimately more goals against.
um, Lane Lambert benching Pierre and Vol. I wasn't a fan of that idea.
I oh, go
For
ahead.
me, when you bench someone like Pierre and Vol, you kinda take away from the line, not necessarily the player, because
Hmm.
he does have a decent two-way game, he's got the speed, but you were replacing him with Hudson Fashion.
Right.
Give me your thoughts. Agree, disagree?
I didn't like the move,
Okay.
and it speaks to what you just said because whether he's putting up points or not, he's a big driver of that line. He basically opens up a lot of opportunities for finishers like Nelson and Palmieri to put points and to score goals, and I think he's been a huge
Yeah.
catalyst for that. We've seen that ever since he came over last season. So to take him out, you know, again, I didn't necessarily disagree with it. I can only wonder or assume that this is a guy
What's
who
going
just
on?
might need a kick in the pants because now this is the
Right.
second time. And funny enough, it worked out both times. He comes back in the lineup, he scores a goal, he looks better. So he might just be a guy that needs to get up in the press box every now and then. And but the question is Lane cutting off his nose to spite his face? Taking out a guy like him, and they ultimately end up losing the game that he was out. Is that the reason they lost? Because Engvall was out? No. Would they might maybe they had a better chance to win with him there? Yeah, sure. I mean, that line with Fashion was pretty quiet through the first half of that game. They didn't really start clicking
Yeah.
until the second half, and they actually had a couple of chances that didn't go. They ran into a hot goalie. So was Engvall the reason they lost to Pittsburgh that night? Probably not.
No,
But
probably not.
ultimately, I think he's a guy who needs to be in the lineup. But Lane seemed to think that he needed to take a rest, and it ended up working out.
Ah,
Are you all right?
yeah. No, we've covered quite a bit here. Guys, any other questions in the chat room? By all means. Um,
You got some activity there.
no, doesn't make sense to shop Mayfield.
No, no.
Especially with Robert Bortuzzo out. That was a pretty scary knee injury, as far as I'm concerned. I've had a couple of knee injuries that didn't look good. Um, you know, we're not going to go into specifics of what we thought, but we're not doctors here. You need someone like Mayfield. You need someone to put that body around, on the opposition, bang him around, get him out of position. Mayfield can still do that. Mayfield's just getting back into the groove. He may just need another game or two. So, you know, let these guys gel. And I'm going to go into that. Halleck hopefully comes back soon. Then you've got Mayfield. Riley has been serviceable. But
I think he's
again,
been
you're
more than
playing the
serviceable.
rookies. Yeah. But now you're getting everyone healthy. You've got two 23-year-olds playing a much bigger role than when these older defensemen when they were injured. They're coming back. It's basically like a new environment. They don't have to take on that big role like they used to, but they can.
I think if you want to put a silver lining in these injuries, it afforded Dobson and Romanov to blossom here and show
Yeah,
everybody that they could be a top pairing. And that's why I think there's some hope when these guys get healthy because Dobson and Romanov weren't playing the way they are now previous to that
right.
because the minutes were, I'm also curious to see how the minutes are distributed when Pellick and Pullock get back as well. Because we keep seeing after every game, Noah Dobson is like his 19th game playing 25 minutes plus, right? I wonder if his time's going to go down a little bit. I'm not sure that's the best idea, but I think because we've seen those guys grow into that top pairing role, I
Right.
think I think there's reason to be positive. If and when Pollock and Pellick get back in. I'm not sure when Pollock's coming back, but at least Pellick's coming back soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's gonna again for me. If Pellet can just stay out of the penalty box, the
Right.
Islanders are going to be golden. But
Yeah.
he's been caught out of the plate a couple of times. Give me your thoughts on that newly discovered third line: Holmstrom, Pajot, and Gauthier. Personally, I love that speed.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think Gaudier has been excellent since he's come in. It looks like he's getting a chance with this team, right? And he's really taken advantage of it. He's potting goals. I mean, is that going to continue at the clip he's doing it? Probably not. But he's contributing, and like you said, the key word there is speed, right? And that's a kind of an issue that this team has had over the past couple seasons, right? The knock has been they're getting
Right.
older, they don't have speed, and you bring in Engvall, you bring in Gaudier, and all of a sudden, you got guys that can fly up and down the ice that, opens that ice up for the rest of their line mates, right? And it changes the game a little bit. And now you're seeing production out of Pajot, and it took him a little while, and Holmstrom, obviously. And I think it's great because they're guys that can be defensively responsible and they can chip in the odd goal, which is exactly what you want out of your third line. And I think the one concern, not just there, I don't know Pajot's numbers in front of me, but just I know overall with this team, the faceoffs, for whatever reason, have tanked a little bit for this team. And you
Yeah,
look you
yeah,
you
not
look
great
at
on the faceoffs.
yeah, so that's something that could use a little improvement, I think. But overall, I think that's a very solid third line. I'm curious to see what happens if and when Zach Parise comes back, because it seems like the whispers are getting a little louder there, and
Yeah,
you wonder how that's going to affect the lineup. But I think you know with the way they've been able to put that line together, and it just seems like you have guys now that are kind of fitting in the right places. Even Anders Lee, he's a guy going into this year that was written off by a lot of people. Everybody was, and I listen, I was skeptical as well. I wasn't sure what he was going to be able to do, and I was like, where do you put this guy? And he ended
Right.
up with Pajot to start the season, and it didn't pan out. He goes up there with Barzell and Horvat, and he's playing like he's 5 years younger all of a sudden, right? And they're looking pretty good out there. So I think everybody's kind of where they're supposed to be, and you get the one casualty in it with Oliver Wahlstrom kind of not being able to find his place, and it looks like he's having a really hard time finding time just to develop his game. But look, if the team is winning without him, what can you do, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was telling a lot of the viewers last week, one of the biggest reasons why Wallstrom isn't getting a lot of time at the moment is because we have a healthy Kyle Palmieri. When was the last time we said that during his Islander tenure? He's usually
Yeah,
been injured sometime.
right, right. No, I mean, listen, Palmieri. Not only is he healthy, but when Palmieri's in, he produces and he
Yeah.
plays a consistent game, and the Islanders haven't seen that from Wallstrom yet. And listen, it's a little chicken or the egg in the sense that he got hurt last year. He was out for a long time. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of luck as far as just being able to consistently be in the lineup and grow with this team and establish his game. If he stayed healthy last year, who knows what might have happened, right?
Mhm.
But it basically, he ends up starting from behind this year going into training camp because he's still kind of recovering from that injury.
Yeah,
And
that's
he's
what I've been
he's
saying.
he's got guys that come into camp and they establish their spots, and he's waiting to just knock on the door to get in the lineup. But if you're collecting points, putting wins up on the board, sorry, man, but you got to wait for your opportunity. I mean, I've said it to Stefan, and he's probably going to have to wait for an injury or two before he really gets an
Bingo.
extended shot with this team.
Yeah. And that's going to be, even if it's Barzell, we don't want that, but Barzell, Palmieri, or Gauthier, any one of those three on that right wing side.
Right,
For me, I don't know if Wallstrom is going to be a third line winger, but I think at some point you got to test him on that second line if Palmieri goes down. I don't want to see anybody other than
right.
Gauthier because of his speed. I think Brock with Enval and Gauthier with that speed on either side would be great, but Wallstrom's shot is at the NHL level at this point, and very much like Holmstrom, he's just got to find the confidence. He's got to get the shot, and when that all comes together, there could be something for his NHL career.
Yeah, I'm just not sure at this point if it's going to be on the island because
Bingo.
it just seems like there's always guys that are kind of stepping ahead of him. Gaudier, just talking about him, right? He gets what 9 minutes a game, and he's coming and scoring a couple of goals, putting points on the board, being very noticeable. Where Wallstrom's kind of been, a little bit of a shadow when he's out there. He hasn't done much. He hasn't been able to, take advantage of that shot. He hasn't been able to put pucks in the net when he's out there in the limited time he's been given. But then you see Gauthier going out there not only scoring goals, but he's frustrating other teams on the forecheck with his speed. And Wallstrom has to be more than just a shot to get into
Right.
this lineup. He has to be able to play the system. He has to be able to play defensively, and that's been his issue ever since. Ever since he came in, and he's been under the tutelage of Trotz and Lambert, and he just hasn't been able to figure out a complete game yet.
That's right. So, all right, so let's move forward here. The
Sure.
Isles are 17, 10, and 10. They're on pace for 98 points. Doesn't mean they're going to finish there. Boys and girls, relax. Um, but the Canes have finally showed up. They're now in the mix, but we're now
Right.
entering the grind. This is the grind of the NHL season. Basically, games 35 through 55. This is where every team is going through the motions. Basically, every city except for like down south is going to be cold.
Right.
It's not,
Right.
yeah. This is going to be the tougher schedule.
Yeah, and it
With
didn't work out
Pelech,
well last year.
no, it did not. It did not. With Pelech
January was a
coming
rough
back,
month.
yeah, January was a very rough month. With Pelech coming back with some stability in that defense, with what we've been talking about, the growth of the defensemen, the coming of the third line, we know the power play comes and goes. Can you see the Islanders holding on to even third or fourth place? But when this grind is done and over with,
Can
heading
I?
into the trade deadline.
Sure. Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's funny, like, the way they've been doing it has been bizarre, as I've said, and it hasn't been
What?
pretty, but they
Yeah,
keep getting the job done. They keep putting up enough goals to either outlast the team or hang on for that extra point. I'll worry about how that's going to translate in the playoffs for another day.
Oh,
but
yeah. Oh,
but I mean, yeah, look, I mean, they're starting to get healthy, goaltending excluded at this moment,
aside,
but
right.
they're starting to get healthy and they've shown an ability to score goals. I mean, the fact that the power play is now a power play and a successful one at
Imagine
that
that.
has just been a complete
Yeah,
complete revelation, but I mean, honestly, huge. It's been huge this year. And none of us saw that coming. Everybody was expecting bottom of the league, just like the last couple of seasons. And it's even more bizarre that it has traded places with the penalty kill, where the power play is a huge asset now. It's a strength. It's something that this team can rely on. You can almost feel good about the power play going out there. I'm like, yeah, I think they're going to put one in here, right? And the opposite now is for the penalty kill, where they go down a man. You're like, you're just crossing your fingers, hoping that they hang on.
right.
And that's one of the most bizarre things to me as well, is just how the penalty kill has just tanked and how they kind of can't have both being successful at the same time, right?
Yeah,
It's either one or the other. But
exactly.
anyway, long-winded answer to your question. I do think that they can hang on. I'm not sold on it. I'm not saying, it's a sure thing. I mean, again, look how these games have
Right.
been going. Look at all these leads they've been blowing. And and like you said, you get into the grind of January, February, and it's kind of just a little season of its own. And they obviously, failed last year, and can this season be different? Of course, but it's still a grind. And the good sign that I've seen is, and something that was a concern of mine earlier in the year, was it took forever
Yeah,
for this team to just beat a competitive team in this league. They were only beating
yeah,
the Columbuses of the league for a while there, and then they finally started
right.
racking up wins against Toronto and Carolina and whomever. Washington's competitive, even though that's
Sure.
a little bit of a surprise, but I think they can hang with anybody in this league. They've shown that. They just took a
Right.
point in Colorado. They just put up what,
In
4 or 5
Colorado.
goals? Yes, four or
Right.
five goals in Colorado on a very shaky Georgiev, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But they've proven that they can do it. They just need to clean up the messes, and the messes has been the problem. I mean, you look at these shot totals in some of these periods where they're getting outshot 16-5, and and typically it's the third, right? They go into that shell, or they just kind of get overridden by these offenses that kind of just start, hemming them in their own zone. But again, can they do it? Yes. Would I put money on it? Not necessarily. But I think I've seen enough. I think I like enough out of this team where I can feel pretty good about this team for sure being in the playoff mix. I think the question is if they can stay relatively healthy, if they're going to be a 1 through 4 team, or a team that's, and I mean division wise, or
sure.
hanging on for a wild card.
Yeah. So, listen, I'm gonna bring up these comments real quick. Rangers coming back to reality. There is a little bit of truth to that, and we're gonna bring in here Caps and Flyers still hanging in there, not helping. Let's pull back a little bit and talk about the rest of the division here for a moment.
Sure. Yeah.
The Capitals, no one saw this one coming. Everyone said at the beginning of the
Not
season they're
me.
too old, they can't sustain it.
Right.
And now they're getting Max Pacioretty back tonight.
Let's hope he lasts more than 5 minutes.
Exactly. But I don't in order for me to really take the Caps seriously, I think they're gonna have to be buyers if they wanna make it into the playoffs. Because I don't I'm still holding on to yeah, they're a little older,
Mhm.
and it's just gonna take 1 or 2 injuries from them, and they might fade. But then you have Philly, who, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, other than Rick Tocchet, John Tortorella deserves the Jack Adams Award.
Certainly deserves some votes, that's for sure.
And for me, I don't know if but they've slowly have been fading in the standings a little bit, but they're making a strong case. I don't know if you were Danny Briere,
Hmm.
would you go for it this year, or would you stick with your plan? Would you pull an Iserman and stick with your plan and retool this team?
Um, well, I guess it depends on how much money plays into this, right? How many tickets they want to sell and how deep they want to go. I mean, look, I guess at the end of the day, you want to stick with your plan, and any success that comes out of this season is a bonus. That's probably the most measured
Yeah,
way to go about it. Um, I still think that they're a team that will, even if it takes a little while, that will eventually fade as the season goes on. I mean, you see Carolina, they're finally getting their act together,
Yep.
and they've already leapfrogged those teams. So Carolina's probably where they're supposed to be, and hope look, if the Islanders are still playing well, that's a team that they're going to be competing with, maybe for some home ice or whatever it is. But Philly, I think they stick with the plan, and I do eventually think that they're going to kind of fizzle out. I kind of feel the same way about Washington too, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because look, there's a lot of teams, and you know what? There's probably some people up in Canada saying this about the Islanders, but there's a lot of teams that have strong starts in the first 30 some odd games of the season, and they look like they're going to contend. And then you get to that grind of the season
I
and they
agree.
start to fade back, right? And I think if you look at the Metropolitan Division, I think Philly and Washington are the two top candidates for that to happen. I don't know if what they're doing is sustainable. Hats off to both coaches for getting them where
Absolutely.
they are, especially in Washington, despite the lack of goal totals coming from Alexander Ovechkin, right? And we'll see what Max Pacioretty does for them. But I think ultimately those are two teams that go towards the bottom, and maybe gives the Islanders an opportunity to really solidify some sort of spot in these standings instead of just desperately clawing for a spot like they did last year.
Um, the Devils.
Yeah,
Talk
didn't
about a
mention them yet.
confusing team. Talk
Hmm.
about a confusing team. Goaltending.
Right,
Timo
right,
Meyer showing up sometime this season.
right.
Uh, give me your. I've seen a bunch of Devils games, but give me your thoughts on the Devils so far this season.
No, I think you're right. Obviously, the goaltending has kind of been their Achilles heel now for a little while. I'm sure Fitzgerald is on the phone daily trying to sort that
Yeah.
out. He might have spoken to Lou about Varley over the last 6 to 12 months. But that's a team that like. Look, if you want to look at long term in the Metro, I think the Devils end up finding their footing as well, and they start to
Yep.
move up like Carolina did. I mean, maybe that's easy to say because those are all the predictions going into the season, but
Yep.
look, I think that they have a good enough, talented enough team to win despite their goaltending. You see teams like Toronto do that, and maybe they don't have all the high-powered names that the guys like the Maple Leafs have, but I think that the Devils are a team that they're young enough, they play a style where they can win despite their goaltending. So maybe they've had some struggles here in the early going, but I ultimately think either they find somebody to get between the pipes there to help them out, or they probably just win some high scoring games. But I think the Devils
Yep.
will probably end up being ahead of the Philadelphias and the Washingtons of the standings when all said and done.
Yep. 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 And that's what we're going. Ah, Pittsburgh.
Mm,
I. You know what? Those first 10 games they may have hurt them. I don't know. Like you said, I think at some point they might pass Philly. They might pass the Capitals, but those are two teams that are still competitive. That I don't know if their offense is going to be able to get them to hurdle literally 3 or 4 teams just to get to a wild card spot. And
One thing I'll say is
Tristan
there's enough
Curry.
time.
Yeah, go ahead, go for it.
No, I'm saying there's enough time for them to do it, and they're
Yeah,
definitely playing better. And look, I didn't fall in love with the Penguins as much as a lot of people seem to this summer after
I did
Dubas
not.
came in and brought in
Yeah,
Carlson, and I actually like Riley Smith a lot. I think he was a really good ad for them. But I also didn't think that it was gonna shoot them up towards the top of the Metro like some people seem to think.
right.
I'm not upset about where they are right now.
No, neither am I.
Um, it's baffling to me that their power play is struggling as much as it does. I mean, you look at those names, even though you look at the ages, but I mean, Crosby's having one of his best seasons. He's 36, which is unbelievable. Malkin's always a threat. Letang is obviously still one of the better offensive defensemen when he's healthy. Um, yeah, it just seems like, I guess a more extreme degree, it's a team that lacks balance, because that's what I've been saying about the Islanders. They're a team that lacks balance. They're putting up goals,
Yeah.
but they're still letting them in. Pittsburgh, yeah, I'm not as concerned about Pittsburgh as I am the Devils, Carolina,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
would even say right now Washington. I think Pittsburgh is far enough in the rear view for me right now where I'm still waiting for them to go on like a long tear. Let's see five out of seven, 7 out of 9 wins for Pittsburgh, and then I'll perk my ears up a little bit. But
Yeah,
right
then
now,
we'll
I'm
look
not too
back and
concerned.
be like, "Uh-oh." Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about them right now.
So, ah, so let's just sum this up. We're in the start of the grind. We've got a lot of youth that are literally they're holding the Islanders up and then some. We're about to get Adam Pelech back, who should be able to stabilize this defense. Because, like you said, last year losing Pelech, we were in. Season's over and
Right,
that's been for a couple of seasons. When
right.
Pelech went down, there were injuries. We are now having Adam Pelech coming back, and this team's right in the thick of things. We now have a third line. We got some kids coming up. I still think we can get right now. Again, Zach Parisi could be another factor. I still think they can catch the Canes for second place. Are you that optimistic?
I look, all of that stuff is possible. It's
Hmm.
really just a matter of these guys making it happen on the ice. What Adam Pelech are we going to get when he comes back? Is he going to be ready to go as soon as he touches the ice? Is it going to take him 3, 5, 7 games before he
Right.
gets his legs back? It seems like when he's come back from injury, it takes him a little bit of time. Mayfield just gets
That's
back
true.
too. He's looked pretty good. But it might take a little time for Pelech to get back. And truth be told, Paul, I don't know if Pelech was having a Adam Pelech like season before he went down.
He
You
wasn't.
know, so hopefully he looks more like the Adam Pelech that Islander country knows and loves when he comes back. But it's just another what if, and
Yeah.
but I do think that they're capable. Like look, they have surprised I think all of us to this point, right? When you consider the injuries and with what's transpired up to now, I think without knowing how it happened, if I think everybody would kind of take the Islanders' place in the standings right now if you
Yep.
told us in July that this is where they were going to be right now. I think you sign up for it, right? I think you look at the 10 overtime shootout losses and say, "Huh, where did
Right.
that come from?" But at the end of the day, third place, you know, a win or two even pulls you maybe a little closer to first place if the Rangers, start losing a little more games, right? They're right in the thick of it with Carolina. They're ahead of New Jersey right now. Nobody saw that coming. I think they've as frustrating as a lot of these games and a lot of these losses have been, because they have been for sure.
Yep.
They're there. They've proven that they can hang with these teams and in a very ugly fashion collect points and win games. So would I rather than find a way to do it a little prettier? Absolutely, please. My blood pressure can only go up so high.
Right.
But yeah, look, if they can stay relatively healthy, they don't get any more devastating injuries to some of your top players, and they've proven capable. And I think, you got to tip your hat a little bit to Lou too, bringing in a guy like Riley and bringing in Bortuzzo before he went down. Again, like
Absolutely.
this, most people probably thought the sky was falling once you see those defensemen go down, right? And he brings in these two
Right.
guys, and he catches some magic in a bottle. And Bortuzzo ends up being steady back there as a defensive defenseman. Riley not only comes in and kind of just without problem to this lineup. Maybe the first game or two he needed to acclimate himself a little bit, but not only
It's the
is he
system.
helping out back there, but he's putting up points. He's been a puck carrier, something we haven't really seen much of outside of Dobson, and he's not even. I wouldn't even call Dobson an elite, puck mover as far as exiting the zone. We haven't really seen anything like that since Letty. In fact, Stefan likes to call Riley Letty Light.
Yeah.
So he's been a little bit of a revelation here. He couldn't get in games in Florida, but he's making it work here. And we were talking to some people about they want Riley to sign an extension already. You know what I mean? But
Okay.
so there's definitely been some positives here. A lot of it's been ugly, but at the end of the day, they've been able to collect points despite the bruises.
There you go. So, all right. So, folks, to kind of sum this up, welcome to the grind of the NHL season. Your Islanders have only lost, despite the dramatics, 10 regulation losses in this conference. They're in every game. Are they pretty? Nope. Will they get better? We hope. There's a lot of what ifs. but there's a lot of what ifs when the grind happens. And this is with every team for the next 20 games minimum. So before we do anything else, we kind of touched on this before. Who are you voting for the NHL All Star game? This is kind of easy for the both of us.
Yeah, it's gotta be Noah Dobson. I mean,
It's
as
got
great as Horvat and Barzell have been, and even Brock Nelson, I think it's gotta be Noah. I mean, he's actually a huge reason why this team is where they are right now, and that extends from 5-on-5 to the power play. I mean, him and Horvat have pretty much boosted this power play up to where it is. But I think you got to give the vast majority of credit to Noah Dobson for
absolutely
for what this team's been doing offensively this year, and it's great to see. I mean, he's getting Norris Trophy consideration,
as he
and
should.
he's established himself as an elite defenseman in this league, and I mean, it's amazing. So yeah, send that guy to whatever city, the what is it, Toronto?
Yeah, I think it's Toronto.
Yeah, send him to Toronto.
Yeah. So, all right, boys and girls, real quick with Sean here. We're going to do water cooler talk. This is where we take your comments, questions, rumors, whatever you want. Real quick, I can handle this one. Does Salo have a future with us? Listen, Salo is no longer a
Salo.
prospect. Okay. Salo is no longer a prospect. When you hit 24, 25, it really does come down to, do I want to play in the NHL? What kind of commitment do you want to play? What kind of motivation do you have to play? It really is on the player to get Lou or any other GM to convince them that you want to be brought up. 1 goal, 10 assists last year is not going to get you the call up. He cleared waivers. Yes, he's having a decent year this year, but in all honesty, Robin Salo has the talent to dominate the American Hockey League if he really wanted to. He's done that with a couple of Bridgeport games. He has literally taken over and he has pulled something similar to what Noah Dobson can do, but there's no consistency. So, does he have a future with us? The Islanders could re-sign him. Does he want to play in the NHL? Does he want to go to Finland? Does he want to go back to Europe? It's all on Robin Salo. So, does he have a future with us? It's on Robin Salo. So,
I
go ahead.
haven't even I haven't even thought of that name in months.
Yeah,
I almost kind of forgot that he existed on the depth chart, to be honest with you. And
that's the point.
what a difference a year or two makes, right? I mean, what was it last year? Yeah, going into last season, we all thought that Salah was pending to the top 6 until
Yep.
Aho took the spot from him, right? And I don't know what happened, but he's obviously, fallen down the depth charts. And, you know, I mean, the good thing is that they're not in a position where they need to worry about whether
no,
Robin Salo is going to be a part of this team, at least not this year.
no.
So, yeah.
Ryan, even though Colorado feed last night, the lack of respect for us continues, yet we are within striking distance of top teams. What else is new? That's how we like it.
Welcome to Long Island.
Welcome to Long Island. Yeah. Ryan, you're in Vancouver. We know this. I'm from PA. We hear it all the time. It's a Long Island thing. We love that. We do not mind being the
Yeah.
underdog. So
It's been
Horvat and Barzell, a little bit of a slump. Hopefully they pick it up soon. Again, it's the ebb and flow of the season. It's the grind. This is all normal, folks. That's it. Yeah, Nelly. Brock Nelson quietly with 17 goals too. He's on pace for roughly 70 points. He's having another good Brock Nelson year. A lot of people had him written off because he was, getting older. But honestly, folks, if you look at the numbers the last 3 years, he is close to putting up the same amount of goals as Nathan McKinnon.
aging like a fine wine.
Absolutely. So, uh, this team is old. When and who gets rest? I don't think they're that old. I mean, if you honestly take out the identity line, they're about as young as the Devils right now. There's really no one old on this team. Mayfield's 30. Bolduc. Granted, those guys, Bolduc, Romanoff, and Dobson, they're all going to turn 24 soon. But as far as offense goes, I think who's the oldest now? Lee at 32.
Liam Brock.
Yeah, I think Brock's like 31, Lee's 32, something like. But that's it. Pajot's still 29, I think.
He
I
might he
don't
might have
think
hit 30.
he
I don't
may
have
have
it in
hit
front of me,
30, but
but
these
yeah.
are still the younger 30s, folks. The Islanders are not that old.
Well, they certainly got younger this year. I mean
Absolutely.
it's relative, but bringing in Engvall, Horvat, they're still in their 20s. Obviously, Romanov and Dobson, being mainstays now, and you mentioned Bolduc. I don't know if Bolduc's going to have a full time spot on this team, but you mentioned it before. He's 23, so they've gotten younger. I don't know
Yeah.
how much younger, but I don't know if they're the father times that everybody seems to think that this team is
Right.
either.
Yeah, I don't see it yet. All right, we'll let you in on this one,
Tim
Thomas.
might be
Just be
right. Yeah.
nice. I know. Do you see the Islanders first in the Metro? No, no. Unless the Rangers have an epic collapse. I mean, never say never. But the Rangers, again, as Islander fans, I'd love to see an epic Rangers collapse. But you know,
The
Jonathan
Isle
Quick isn't a trophy nominee because he's a big reason why the Rangers are there.
The Islanders cannot take first in the Metro unless they clean up their third periods and just blowing
Yep.
leads. Like they
Yep.
they are not taking first in the Metro unless they clean up the defensive side of their game. That's plain and simple. Can they continue to hover around 2-3? Sure. First, no.
Ryan thinks third. I'm thinking third. I believe it or not, I'm actually on video. I had the Islanders finishing second this year behind the Devils, but only because I thought Carolina has been doing so much winning for so long. I was honestly waiting for the rug to get pulled from underneath them, and it has happened. But again, Carolina's right back in it now. So again, who knows? They're in, like Sean said before, they're in the conversation, and that's where you want to be heading into Game 40 soon. This is the grind. This is where you want the Islanders to be.
It's just so
So
tight because
yes,
the standings are so tight. You have a bad week, and then all of a sudden you're tumbling down to third, fourth, fifth. You know what I mean? So they
yeah,
just have to keep
and
collecting points. Just do it a little prettier, please.
yeah, and folks, right now, let's put the Rangers aside for the moment. 2 through 7 in the Metro Division is still up in the air. We have no clue where any of these teams are going to land. So buckle up. This is going to be one heck of a finish. Going to be one heck of a grind, and we'll go from there. Let's see here. Do we think Lou will grab a sniper? Will they be on the first line or second? I don't think so. I think you're going to see, in my humble opinion, I haven't even asked around yet. I think you're going to see someone like a Zach Parisi, maybe a good two-way forward, someone who can help out on the penalty kill, maybe a little bit better on the second unit. Um, if there is a package out there, maybe you look for that goalie prospect who maybe just needs a little more time in Bridgeport, but could also play a game or two in the NHL and not someone like Appleby. Um, Sean, give me your thoughts. Do you think the Isles would go after a sniper?
I would almost argue that they don't need one right now. First time, long
I like
time.
the odds. Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think they need that. I think their biggest need, if they are going to go fishing at the deadline, is probably a defensive defenseman.
Okay.
Somebody to just help steady things back there because obviously what they've had so far hasn't been enough. I think Parise ultimately ends up coming to the team. How when that is and how he ends up contributing remains to be seen. But I think
Right.
he'll be an Islander before the trade deadline comes.
Yeah.
Not that has a factor in it. It's just a signing.
Yeah.
but
This is just us. This is just us talking. Yep.
but yeah, I think defensive defenseman. I don't think a sniper is actually a need because you got guys like Horvat, Barzell, and Nelson putting up a lot of goals right now.
Yep. Yep. So we're both in that mindset of a more defensive type of a player, whether it's a defenseman or a 200-foot penalty killer or whatnot. It's a little bit more on the offensive side. Definitely. I it's like you said, Sean. I don't think they need a sniper because all the lines now. We've got 4 lines running. You're not going to mess up that chemistry of 4 lines,
I think it only changes is if Lee starts to slow down again.
right?
Like Lee, everything looks good there now on the first line. Lee's looking good. The whole line's looking good. But You can't rule out the chance of Lee sputtering out like he did last year because he slowed down towards the end of the season. He wasn't much of a factor in the playoff series against Carolina. So if there's hints of that happening as you get close to the deadline, maybe that's when Lou, sets his sights on maybe somebody to help fill that gap on the first line. How you juggle the lineup from there, I have no idea with the cap and all that, but maybe that's when he puts his eye on a winger or somebody who could score if Lee starts to fizzle out.
Any other questions, comments, concerns for Sean and I before we let you guys go? Anybody got a score on that Devils Washington game? These guys are slacking. I normally get scores all night long. They give me all the updates.
I thought I saw one up there before, but
Okay.
it's well
I don't know.
past now. I don't know. I think a Dallas
Yeah,
game was.
Parisi up to speed as well as our injured. You know what? I don't know. I think if Zach comes back, he's going to be tearing it up. I
Hmm.
I'm going to give Zach maybe no more than 3 games because I don't think 3-1 Jersey. Thank you. Good. I'm excited to see Zach come back if he does. Um, yeah, but again, Lane's not going to put him in until he's absolutely ready for game shape. And with Zach the way he is, I don't think it would take him that long. So I'd be excited for that. But we'll see. You need a few. I don't want to say you need a few more injuries, but you need that open roster, and that doesn't happen until after the trade deadline. Because after the trade deadline, you get that open roster where you can basically bring up anybody, and then you'll be set to go. So we'll see where Zach fits in somewhere over there. So, Sean, I want to thank you for coming on. This has been a lot of fun.
Pleasure.
Where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on the Twitter at Shawnee Hockey, SEANY Hockey. You can check us out at hockey9ny.com. And then, of course, you can check us out Sunday nights at 8 o'clock every week at twitch.tv/hockey9ny. You can watch myself and Stefan Rosner of the Hockey News. Talk Island is live at 8 p.m.
Who do you got coming up this Sunday?
That's a secret, Paul. Because I
Ah, you
because I
shouldn't do
don't
that.
know yet. No, because I don't know yet. That is yet to be
Yeah,
established. So
okay,
stay
I got
tuned.
you.
Yes. Yes. So yeah,
No, I want to thank you again for coming on. This has been a lot of fun, and
absolutely.
we'll
Appreciate
get you
having
on
me.
before the season's over anyway.
Sounds great, Paul. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Boys and girls, thank you for coming on. Isles Talk again. Don't forget to follow and watch um, Hockey Night in New York on Sundays at 8 o'clock. And for those of you, enjoy the grind. Enjoy this weekend. Vegas at 10 o'clock. Make sure you stay up. Let's go Islanders, and we'll see you next week.